Hi, this is Camina, and I am listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Kris. And Riina has disappeared off the call.
Oh.
And you're listening to
Side Dish with Camina.
All right.
Yeah, we're all here. Meet Camina.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We won't keep you too long.
Hey, that's okay. I've been really actually looking forward to this a lot. I'm a big metal fan myself, and I couldn't believe when Lee reached out to me. I said, "You're kidding."
So have you listened to this podcast before?
I have. I checked it out immediately when she sent it to me. I wasn't aware of it before, but started.
And you still agreed?
I'm sorry?
And you still agreed to do it?
Yeah. I'm here, aren't I? Hey, listen, I usually don't wake up before 10 a.m. for most people, so it's 8:30 my time here.
Where are you?
I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico right now.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Yeah. What's the whole pandemic like in New Mexico? It's probably a lot different, right? Because it's so wide open.
Yeah, exactly. I think people move here to naturally self-isolate. And microdose their human contact with people, I think is what they move here to do. So it wasn't really, I moved here to work on the EP, just to kind of distance myself from everything, from distraction. And, I have to be honest, I haven't really noticed, a lot of differences until I traveled to bigger cities, and I'm like, oh my God, I see it. I'm more aware, I guess, when I go to larger cities. But here, this is just desert life. You move to the desert to isolate and live in solitude for a while. And I think, we haven't really been affected. We didn't have any cases until recently. I think we're one of the last cities in the country to get a case of COVID. And I think it was actually in Albuquerque. It wasn't even in Santa Fe proper. So,
wow.
Yeah, people haven't been sick here.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a good thing. And it's beautiful here. It's freezing cold now. I actually just flew in late last night from Los Angeles. Been working on the next EP. So just got here, and then, just to do the time change, and I'm awake for this call. So happy to meet you guys.
Well, thank you.
Hey, Bruce, can you stop breathing heavily into the microphone?
Oh, fuck you.
Again, with a female, Bruce. Again.
Riina, are you hearing it really, Riina?
No, I'm not.
Thank you. I think he's making this shit up.
I'm not. I'm the guy in charge of recording this thing. I'm the one recording. I'm just trying to make it the best it can be here.
Oh,
I'm
seriously.
not wearing headphones, so maybe that's the reason I'm not picking it up.
I don't know.
Okay,
so, Camina, yes. So, Camina, for those not familiar with your work, can you give us a 2-sentence boardroom pitch?
2 seconds board, like an elevator pitch?
Yes, exactly.
It's a trip hop, lo-fi sort of ambient project, and it's actually a unique sound. I wanted to make a project that I hadn't heard before, and mix some South American influence from my ethnic background, and infuse it with some deep bass. And I set out to craft a sound that I hadn't heard before, and it's kind of turned into this. The best way I can describe it is lo-fi ambient trip hop, but it's actually so much more than that, and it's really hard to define with musical terms other than those things. I can tell you what was used to craft the sound, but it's kind of become its own thing. So actually, that's a really hard question for me to still answer, even after all the press I've done for it. It still stumps me every time. But I am happy with how it's come out, and the best way to answer that question is it's the greatest compliment when people say, "I haven't heard this before," or right. "What is this?" So that's how I would define it. I think people that listen to it can start to add words and and their own descriptive nouns to it, I guess, and adjectives. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of becoming its own thing. It's a different thing to everyone, depending on what your musical taste background is. But the beauty of it is a lot of people have been drawn to it because of its differences and the sound, which is great. And I think that's what led me to speaking to you guys this morning, which is a huge compliment. So
Sure.
I was listening to Forever and Always and watching the video. And the first thing that kind of popped out to me is I felt like I was watching like a new I Will Always Love You video. Or not I Will Always Love You. What's that Sinead O'Connor song that Prince wrote? Fuck.
Nothing compares.
Yeah, Nothing Compares to You. And I was just like, that's kind of what I felt like, a more modern version of it, because the video, like the cinematography, is just so kind of simple yet mesmerizing at the same time. Was that an intentional choice that you made, or did you have a cinematographer kind of deal with it and sketch it out? How did you go about with the video?
Yeah. So I was supposed to make these videos in Los Angeles, and of course, back in May. And of course, COVID happened and everything was shut down. Productions were shut down. So I called an old friend of mine who I've known for 20 years, and I said, would you come to Santa Fe for a week and make 2 music videos with me? I have some ideas sketched out for this. And of course, budget is always an issue with making music videos.
Yeah.
They're just so expensive to make. And as an indie musician, you just, it adds, the limitations of not having a lot and trying to make something really, really good and tangible with very little, which I love those challenges because it just allows you to get even more creative. So what I did was, in my house, I set up this black velvet backdrop and got my kitchen stool out that spun, and ordered a lighting kit so that we could have the opacity really high so that we could play with color in the post.
Yeah.
So editing it out. So that's kind of how that came. It's like the cheapest music video I think that's ever been made in terms of what it is. But I am so pleased with how that came out, and I'm really happy you asked about that video, because the inspiration, I was going to ask you guys about this if you guys had seen this movie, but there's a movie that came out in 2018 called Mandy. It's with Nicolas Cage. It was directed by Panos Cosmatos. Do you guys know about this movie?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to watch
do
it,
not.
though.
I am shocked because it is the most metal thing I've ever seen in my life, and it is the greatest movie ever, and you guys need to see it ASAP.
Well, I will. I'm writing it down as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, it has everything in it. It has like this cult in it, led by this cult leader named Jeremiah. He's really sadistic in this movie, and it's kind of a horror thriller film. And then there's this like acid cult that is like all black leather, and they, are like metalheads, but they make this acid and they drink this acid and they kidnap this woman who's like this ethereal, like post-apocalyptic, like illustrator for books, and then Nick Cage, and they live in this forest, and he's like he is a lumberjack, and yeah, she's kidnapped. Anyways, I don't want to give too much away, but the way the movie was made stylistically is like so beautiful, and I kind of took a lot of my inspiration for Forever and Always from that movie. And because there's this one scene, they play a lot with color, and there's this one scene where her face kind of morphs into this back and forth between this cult leader and her. And anyways, I used a lot of the stylistic elements from that movie for Forever and Always, with me kind of morphing as I'm spinning a little bit. So Mandy was the direct inspiration for how that video came out, and it actually fits with the music as well. There's a lot of restraint, and especially with the vocals, and that approach is incredibly intentional, just in terms of, I want the music to have its own space, but I also want to allow for moments to be slightly off kilter. And so that video, if you watch it, I actually wrote the song about a dog that passed away, my dear Olivia. She passed away last year, and she actually shows up in that video twice, but very quickly, and you have to be paying attention to catch it where our faces kind of morph together in the video. So, and yeah, there's a lot of little things in there that are incredibly understated. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I also love the track, and I love your sound. I think there's like this Portishead-y sort of, feel track at times, and like you even do this thing with your voice at like one point, which is very much what Beth Gibbons does. Like I'm sure it's not like intentional that she's more like picked that up, but it was just like original yet familiar moment in the vocals. But yeah, I really, really like that track, and the video is so cool.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm a big Portishead fan, so that's a compliment. Thank you.
One thing. What is your? Go ahead, Kris, sorry.
Well, I think one of the things I really liked about the track, besides the vocal, which is quite good and the video is stunning, is how you took the drums and you added a lot of swing to them. And the way you were distorting the bass. Now, do you engineer your own recordings, or does someone else do that? How do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, so I come up with the tracks originally with my producer, and then for this EP, we went into a studio so that we could just manage the levels, because it's tricky when you're recording deep bass, because you want it to be able, and that actually comes through in mastering as well later, but it's really complicated because you have different speaker levels and you don't want to blow someone's speakers out. You still want everything to be super balanced, right? So it was a challenge, actually. That's a good question. Nobody's asked me that yet. It's a challenge to get that deep bass sound, but have it be mixed properly with everything else going on.
Yeah, I call as an audio engineer, I call that the blow up the car test. So
yeah. Well, what's funny? After each track, I went into my car to listen to the mix. That's how the mixes were determined, based on the levels of my car speakers.
Yeah. No, I don't doubt it. Because cars are so bass heavy, generally speaking, at least modern cars. So like, you might be sitting in front of like some high end speakers in a studio. You're like, yeah, that's great. And then you get in your car and like the windows are shaking. You're like, oh no,
yeah.
What the hell just happened? Yeah,
exactly.
And I noticed that right away because there's a lot of distortion on the sub bass, and when I say distortion, I mean more saturation, so that you can hear it not just in low speakers, but also in regular speakers and earbuds or whatever, which I thought was quite smart.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we worked really hard. And to be honest, I still think it's too heavy.
Oh, no. It's great. I right now I'm sitting in like a room that's like quite flat, and the mix is great. It's really, really good.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's good to hear. Like, I still think it could have come down but I'm a perfectionist. So I was like, oh, just give me 2 more decibels. Just bring it down to like stuff that people aren't going to hear, but I hear it,
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
But I started out as an engineer, so that's before I started playing music. So yeah. So I do know how to engineer, but I prefer not to do it with my own projects because I'll never release anything if that's the case.
That I understand. That I totally understand. Yeah. Yeah, you could like if you're mixing your own stuff, or you'll sit there and you'll be like, what if I do half a dB here and half a dB there? Oh,
exactly. Yeah. It's torture. It's really torture for me. It's just like I'll never get anything done because I'll just try to be perfecting everything.
Well, yeah. And your focus changes too, and because you're part of everything about it, you have the ability to just be like, "Oh, I'm going to listen to just this quiet little background piece right now," and
exactly.
that's the only thing you can focus on, and it's too loud. And so you turn it down, and then you go in your car and you listen to it. You're like, well, where did it go? It's not there anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Overfocused.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, it's sorry.
Yeah. How do you feel about like if you have like sort of a limitless timeline to like redo your vocals? Because that's like the worst for me. If I have something that is like, I will release it when I'm ready, I will never get the vocals done because there's always been something that I want to fix that I'm sure everybody else will and judge me as a singer by that half a second bit that is imperfect,
Yeah. Well, I was a vocal performance major in school, so I sang opera. And so, like, I've been trained to not have anything be dissonant. You have to hit every note, you have to hit it in a certain way. And with this project, it was so fun for me because I personally find a lot of beauty in the imperfection of things.
Right.
And dissonance became sort of a theme vocally through every track. So like on Fly Away, the second track, I'm slightly flat on a few parts, and that was intentional. Even though that would normally drive someone like me absolutely nuts, it was a way for me to communicate just the pain in that song.
Right.
And so I've used it as the technique. I used imperfections as techniques to kind of drive a message through. And some of my favorite artists are not the best vocalists either. Like Neil Young is a really good example.
Amen. Love it.
And I'm a massive Neil Young fan, and I feel like you have to be willing to let those things go. I think for the artistry, for the emotion, or whatever you're trying to convey come through. And I think some of the most beautiful things I've ever heard have those elements in it, and it adds a human experience to it. We're not perfect as people, as individuals, as artists especially. And so I think a part of the artistry is just trying to find yourself, find what works for you, and not beat yourself up about certain things. And so that's what this project sort of became for me, from a vocal approach anyway.
Right.
So, but I understand what you're saying, and I understand now that I've heard it, hundreds of times, now that it's done. There are certain things I can nitpick at, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? This works. This works because of this.
Yeah.
I think R&B does that quite a bit, where they come up, especially when they're doing runs, it's intentionally slightly flat. And like you say, it creates that element of kind of yearning or pain or however you want to say it.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you do something too perfect, like there are a few takes that I've done that I did over and over, but I ended up using the first vocal take for Fly Away specifically it was the first one we used. And then I heard the flat parts and I was like, let's try and perfect it. And then I went back and listened to the perfect take, and I was like, this just doesn't have the emotion or the rawness I want in it. So we ended up going back and using the first one for that reason. But yeah, Forever and Always is probably the most R&B attempt I made on the entire EP. And I was definitely trying to channel. I was thinking of like Whitney Houston or, when I was really belting out those notes. But
right.
But yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have to wrap up here.
Okay.
Sorry, we have a full day here where we're just.
Hey, before we go though, if people out there listening want to find your music, go ahead and plug your sites and that sort of stuff. Oh,
sure. Yeah. If you want to hear more of Camina, you can go to caminamusic.com. And I constantly update that website with new news and videos and music. But I'm on Spotify, iTunes, and every other streaming service, Bandcamp and SoundCloud. So
you're pretty active social media wise?
Oh yeah, social media wise, I'm Camina Music on all channels. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's Camina Music.
Cool. And you're pretty active. Fans can get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Awesome. My response rate is pretty good. I'm under 5 minutes. So.
That's great. That's awesome.
So I got a new question now for every band that we interview. What's your response rate on Messenger and Facebook?
Anyway, I hate to cut you off, but we've got another one right behind you here.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it was great talking to you guys.
Thank you for taking the time.
I really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us today.
Yes, sure, and I'll send Lee the link when it's up.
Okay, great.
All right, be well, Camina. Take care.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Hello out there. Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together, we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.